Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Weekly Inkblot. Tonight we're going to be going over suicide prevention and support systems, social support. I was actually going to start with social support, but after some things have come up, I've decided that we're actually going to do the suicide prevention first because the reality is that so many people die of suicides. Um,
That shouldn't it shouldn't have happened to begin with.
I
It could have been prevented.
mean, according to the Suicide Prevention Coalition, in 2009, it was the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S., and that was around 37,000 people. Um, First of all, there are a lot of different hotlines. You could probably find some in your area because I know that here in Ohio there's one up in Ravenna, which is like about 30 minutes from where I live right now, and they have their own suicide hotline. Um, so I would imagine like a lot of there's plenty of local ones. The most well known though, and the one that when I joined IOP, we were all given these, which are these little pamphlets that talk about suicide. And um, it says, it goes through a list of things that can come along with, like before a suicide attempt. Um, but so this is the number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You do not have to be suicidal to call them. Um, if you are having a crisis or just really upset, even if you are not contemplating suicide, they're there to talk at any time. Their number is 1-800-273 That's 1-800-273-8255. If you prefer if you need one that is specifically for Spanish, that number is 1-888-628-9454. And
Um, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say that as I said, there are a lot of different resources. I've been looking online at a couple of different things. Such as like the Suicide Prevention Coalition, and I was the Suicide Prevention Resource Center, which has a lot of information about library sources, suicide, suicide in general, suicide prevention, how to survive a loss, roles in suicide prevention, and then organizations and federal agencies. Um,
I do want to say if you know of somebody who is threatening suicide, you do not have to be in the same state, city, town, whatever, as the person threatening to commit it to call emergency services.
mhm.
You can call 911 from wherever you are, and as long as you know the city that they live in and at least a phone number, they can find them.
Yep.
So don't think that you can't do something just because you're, half a country away. You can.
I years ago, one of my friends back in Utah had tried to commit suicide, or she was talking about it. She hadn't actually gotten to the point of trying it, but she I knew where she lived, and I knew their names, and even without the address, like I called up the Utah police and was like, okay, here's what's going on, and they took care of it. They went over there, they did the um what's it called, well-being check, to see if she was in any danger and whatnot. um you can as I said, any state. So if it's an online friend, you just need to know like what state they're in, and maybe the city is really helpful. Um,
I had one suicide attempt. It was a combination of cutting and medication and alcohol. And I actually had a friend in Oregon who called 911 where she lived, and they got her in contact with the Akron PD, who sent somebody over. And again, this is Ohio. She managed to get somebody over there inside of a half an hour of her call from Oregon. So never worry about being too far away from somebody to help them. You can.
mhm. Um, and like, if never, never assume, if somebody is talking about suicide, don't take it lightly, because it should never be taken lightly. I hate all those people that sit there and say, like, oh, they're saying they're gonna kill themselves for attention.
It is always better to err on the side of caution
And
because you don't want to be the one who could have done something and didn't do it.
well, that and most of the time it is not for attention. It
Yeah.
is a cry for help. They are trying to get someone to listen to them, to realize that something is seriously wrong. Um, Sometimes they have no other ways to do it but to threaten, and that is not it's not an attention thing. It's they are begging for someone to help them. Um, there's a couple of behavioral signs that you should look for. Um, so I'm going to give you a list. Um, Talking about wanting to die or to kill themselves, obviously. Looking for a way to kill themselves, such as searching online or buying a gun. Talking about feeling hopeless or having no reason to live. Talking about being trapped or in unbearable pain. Talking about being a burden to others. Increasing the use of alcohol or drugs. Acting anxious or agitated. Behaving recklessly. Sleeping too little or too much. Withdrawing or isolating themselves. Showing rage or talking about seeking revenge. Displaying extreme mood swings, and this is all from the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Um, there's also certain things, like, if they start giving a lot of personal items away, or you start seeing that they're kind of like figuring, like, doing a bunch of bank things, and like withdrawing all their money, giving it to people,
Trying to say goodbye.
paying off bills, that paying off big debts that they obviously can't afford, trying to say goodbye, um, giving away things of extreme sentimental value, that kind of thing, are also signs that something's up.
And if you if you feel suicidal, if you feel depressed, we do encourage you to talk to somebody about it. Um, there's an awful lot of people that think that there is nobody who is willing to listen, nobody who cares. That is not true.
Nope, not at all. I can tell you from experience that most of the people at these hotlines are there by personal choice because they want to help. They want to be there for someone when they're in a crisis. They want to listen to it because if for them, listening and helping you is important to them. So, and you also have a lot of different avenues of support, which we're going to talk about. But again, there's always the hotlines. Um,
Always.
Again, this one is 1-800-273-TALK. 1-800-273-8255.
If you're not comfortable talking vocally or for some reason you can't, there are online resources that you can find, that you can strike up live chat with a representative
Mm,
from these places. Um, but it is also important, if you're thinking of it, to really picture what it would do to the people around you and not what your perception of it is. Try to imagine what they would be going through. At the
I will be fair here that it's really hard in the
it
moment
is.
to see it for what it really is. Um, because in oh, hey
Yo,
there, how are you? Can you hear us?
I don't think.
yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I would like to say had I've almost had a friend die in my arms because of suicide. Um, she thought that nobody cared, nobody wanted to listen, and she called me to say goodbye. And as it happened, I was literally like a block away from her house when she called, and I pulled into her driveway, called 911, and she'd taken about 250 pills, and they had me hold her hand and try to talk to her to keep her conscious. And she flatlined that evening. She almost died. And it's a really frightening and very scary thing for everyone involved, including the person who's trying to end it. It's a terrifying thing.
Yes, it is. That's why it's so important to pay attention to when people are like there's changes in moods or they're withdrawing, they're not talking to you as much.
In that instance, and this is important too, she had a really good day. Really, she was laughing, she was having a good time, and 2 hours later, and perhaps it was her way of having one last good day and leaving it at that. But
That
you know,
actually brings up that I'd like to when I hmm?
oh yeah,
Oh yeah. hmm
yeah,
Um yeah, the because you need energy in order try to commit suicide. Most people, when they're so depressed, they don't even have the energy to. It's really dangerous. The point I wanted to make was that when I tried to commit suicide, my biggest one, because I've tried a couple times now, my biggest one was after I had started Prozac and I wasn't seeing a counselor regularly. They had put me on medication and then just kind of discarded me. And they didn't tell us at all that feeling better and getting the energy from the medication is actually dangerous because you need to be carefully monitored when you start medication, um, because you do generally get that burst of energy and it looks to everybody else like you are doing so much better.
Mhm.
And then it comes out of nowhere and you're dead. And it's like, and everybody's sitting there going like, I don't get it. Like, they were so happy, they were feeling so good, they were laughing, they were having fun, like this is the best I've ever seen them. And yes, like there's more energy, but it doesn't change all of the things in your head. When you start medication and when you're on medication, you need to be monitored at all. I mean, not at all times, but you need to be monitored. You need to be seeing a counselor. You need to be seeing your psychiatrist or doctor, like at least every 3 months when you're doing your refills. Really, really good doctors will not give you refills unless you come and see them, um, because of how dangerous it is to go on medication and have the increase of suicide.
You know, the saddest part about suicide and an awful lot of families, it's one of those things that people don't like to address. And without fail, every time I've ever called 911 on one of my suicidal friends, I've had family backlash from it in the form of nasty phone calls, nasty emails, everything, calling me every name in the book because their child couldn't possibly feel that way. Their child wouldn't have ever done it. And, you know, that's, I think, where the problem lies is a lot of people refusing to believe that that's a problem for people and refusing to see it in their own, friends and family.
What we need to do is change our perceptions on mental health and mental illness. We need to, and this is the whole point of Inkblot, is because people are not paying attention to the problem. They're ignoring it because it's something that they don't want to deal with. And we can't keep doing that, because if we keep doing that, the more chance people have of dying like this. We need to stop pussyfooting around this issue.
20% of people are mentally ill. 20%. And out of that percentage, a good portion of them have had suicidal thoughts at least once.
Mm-hmm.
That's a significant amount of the population. And when you have people who don't want to talk about it, don't want to address the issues, don't care, that's going to make that option all the more appealing
Mm-hmm.
because they feel that nobody cares.
Yep.
And that is one of the biggest issues I can think of. You have, religious fanatic people who, will sit there and condemn you for it, for feeling that way because, you're going straight to hell. And this isn't a bash on religion, but there are people out there that take it to those extremes.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is that mental illness is not a religion. It is not related to religion. It's a medical problem that needs to be addressed and talked about and dealt with and accepted as something that does and can happen to anyone you know. It doesn't matter what they've been through in life. Somebody who could have lived a perfectly normal life can go through those feelings and emotions. And to sit there and say that, oh, there's no possible, you were never abused, you were never put down, well, it doesn't matter. If that's the way they feel, that's the way they feel.
There are a lot of different things and things that people hide a lot. one of the suicides that happened recently that I because my friend her friend committed suicide, and everyone's reaction was they they don't know why he did it at all. They have no idea. And it's because people hide it. And some people hide it better than others. And it's part of the stigma that does it. I wanted to there's one of my friends on here, Lisa McNeil. She has a blog which is the view from here one dot blogspot dot ca, and she if you go onto Weekly Inkblot's Facebook page, I have a link to this that her someone it's called Bell Let's Talk campaign. It is set for this Tuesday, February 12th. Um, what they are going to do is they're taking a stand about starting the dialogue to tear down the stigma of mental illness. And what they're going to do is for every tweet we do that day, Bell will donate 5 cents to mental health. And if you want to look up more about it, you can go to letstalk.bell.ca/en. And this is like I think part of it is that you can they're doing it on Twitter is
Mm.
one of the big ones that they're using, which, and I don't even, and I have a Twitter account. I don't use it that often, but I'm willing to use it for this because it's important. This is, it's not even just about, the 5 cents. It's about being part of it, about, sending out those hashtags and those tweets and everything and keeping the dialogue going. Um, she, wanted to make some comments on this week's because she's from Canada, so it's a little bit different. Unfortunately, I found out that even in Canada, the healthcare for mental illness and isn't that great. Um, she said about 5% of the total healthcare dollars are allotted to mental health, and 20% of the population suffers from mental illness. Um, and mentally ill patients tend to wait twice as long in the ER. But this is the one I really wanted to use right now. Approximately 820,000 people commit suicide each year, according to the World Health Associate or Organization. So I think that this is worldwide. This is not a country. This is worldwide. So we have 820,000. That's one person every 40 seconds. And she said by the year 2020, they predict that number will rise to one person every 20 seconds. Of those people, 90% are mentally ill. Suicide is the number. She didn't give the number. Um, um, a lot. She said, it's one of the higher numbers. She didn't give the specific number, but people between the ages of 10 to 24. That's young guys.
Yeah, children can commit suicide.
Yes.
Whether or not you realize it, children at that age are more than capable. And bullying has an awful lot to do with that too.
Hmm. And bad home lives. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. She said most suicides are not planned, so it's fundamental that we not isolate these people by not knowing what to do or say. Um, Isolation is the worst thing that can happen to someone who may be suicidal. And she talks about that more on her blog. Uh, it's called The View from Here. Um, and she actually has some really interesting things to say about it. Um, Before we go on to social support, though, I just one more time, and I'm probably going to give it at the end too. Uh, Suicide Prevention Lifeline. This is the national number. Is 1-800-273 TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. And you can also go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. And that's their website for it.
If we can find numbers for other countries, we'll be more than happy to post it up on our website for you. Because as it happens,
Mm,
we've learned that we now have international viewers, so
yes.
it might be worth our while to make sure that those are all in place
Yeah,
for you guys too.
we can look those up. That's not a problem. And as I said, that you can probably find some closer to you. If you like put in your city and suicide hotline into Google, um, that should probably help. Um, Tonight we're going to talk about social support, which is actually a wide array. Like I think that you'd be a little surprised by how much there is to social support versus what you think. Um, because when we were talking about an IOP, it's like really you really sit there and think about what is social support, and you'll find out that the net is actually pretty big. Um, Now, when you think of social support, you're probably thinking of like family and friends, and that's true. But those are not the only forms of social support. Um, there's support groups, there's hotlines, there's pets. Pets are social support. They might not be able to say anything, but they can definitely feel what's going on. They can, a lot of animals can usually tell when you're upset, and they give their support in their own special way. Um, Doctors are part of your social support. Nurses are part of your social support. Counselors are part of your social support.
Sometimes even teachers, if you're,
Yes,
comfortable talking to them.
teachers are definitely principals.
Neighbors,
Yep, neighbors are part of the social support. Um, Trying to think of what else. Online groups that you're part of, even if they are not specifically for um, suicide or mental illness or anything like that, they're still social support. They're still an avenue for you. Um,
I know there's more. I can't.
yeah, there's and that's just it. I mean, there's so much. Um, and don't sit there and think like all of the professionals and whatnot, like, oh, it's just their job to listen. That's not always true. Um,
It is their job to be impartial.
it is their job to be there for their patient, but that doesn't mean that
Yeah.
their support is
Yeah.
not useful and is not genuine. Um, the woman who did the group for the IOP for me, um, she said that once a patient, always a patient, and even 20 years from now, If I have her number, I can call her and in a crisis and talk to her because she wants to help. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions that we have about our social support is that they don't want to help or we don't want to burden them. And you're not burdening them.
That is one of the worst phrases out there is I don't want to be a burden.
Yeah.
Um,
But we use it all the time.
yeah, and I think if you really think that you're a burden, you need to talk to somebody to help you phase that out because you're not a burden. You're not. We think that about ourselves and we're often our own worst critics,
Hmm.
but the people that care about us don't view us that way.
When people say that, they want to help, they're not just saying it to be nice.
You know, they're not saying it for their health.
90% of the time, they really will help. They really do want to. You call them up and you need, help with something, they will do it. And they don't consider it a burden to have to help you. Is if you're part of the family, if you're a friend, if you're a friend of a friend, if it's your church, that's another one. Um, and that's not just the clergy, but members as well. And church groups are a good source. The reason that came to mind is because I grew up Mormon, and I'm not Mormon now. I'm pagan, but I did grow up in the church, and um, of all the people I wouldn't have thought to have gone to, I could have picked up the phone and called my home teacher, which what that is it's someone from the church that comes to your home every week and does like a lesson, and then you do your prayers and whatnot. Um, Even he never would have turned me away. And if he had helped me, he would have been happy to have spent the time listening to me and talking to me because people genuinely do most of the time. They really do want to help.
You know, sometimes you do have to give them an idea of what you need help with.
Hmm.
Oh, people can't read minds, and especially for people who've never dealt with this before, they want to help. Sometimes they don't know how, and it's up to you to say, I just need somebody to listen, or
Hmm.
I just need to talk to somebody.
This is one of the hardest things to learn how to do, but I am learning it in trauma therapy right now. Is to actually most of the time people want to help, but they don't know what to do. And it's really important to learn how to let people know what you need.
Yes.
My husband could try 50 different ways of showing me support, and if it's not what I need, it's not going to help. But if I tell him specifically, like, okay, well, when I'm doing this, I need you to do this and this and this, or, one of these. And that's not, it doesn't make it not genuine because he it's something he wants to do. I'm just giving him the ideas as to what would help me so that he doesn't sit there guessing. And that can be used in all different situations. I think the best place to start practicing it first is with your doctors because you are always your biggest advocate. You are our advocate number one, and you always have to be able to tell them what you need. And if what they're doing is not helping, to be like, okay, let's brainstorm. And you can do that with social sport too. You can do that with your friends. You can sit them down and be like, okay, so say that I have this problem, or like I get suicidal, or I cut, or you know this is what would be helpful and this is what is not helpful. because sometimes people are so well-meaning in some of the things that they do, but they do it all wrong.
But if they don't know, they can't help. So
Mhm.
you have to be vocal. You really do. It's okay to voice what you need.
Mhm.
It's okay. You know, there are so many people that just need somebody to listen, not even to talk,
Mhm.
just listen because they need to talk and vent and get it all out. And if they need you to listen, just listen. And you'd be surprised how much good you are capable of doing by just being there and showing that you care.
Mhm.
There have been a couple of times when Emmy and I are really upset and living in separate places at the time, and we'd call each other and video chat.
Mhm.
Just sit there and vent for the next couple of hours and talk. And in the day and age where you can talk to people that way on the computer, that's fantastic. You can see your friends in other states and talk to them, and you haven't talked to them
Other
in years.
countries.
And in other countries, right?
Mhm.
That's a fabulous way of talking to people. You can talk to family now that's across on the other side of the world
Mhm.
if you need help, and they're there. And it's so wonderful sometimes just to see who it is you're talking to. You
And
know,
there's other ways of the support too. I mean, like, we have cell phones,
hmm?
we have texting, we have snail mail, which almost no one uses now, but it really can be used for things like this. You
For
know,
you youngins, snail
uh,
mail is the process of writing letters
on a
and
piece
sending
of
them on a
paper.
piece of paper and sending it through the actual mail system.
I know it's almost unheard of for anything other than bills and what, junk mail now.
But believe it or
But
not,
it is a good use.
when we were kids, long distance cost money, and
Mhm.
internet tied up the phone lines. So if you had a friend out of state, you wrote them letters.
Yep.
And sometimes long distance pen pals are the best because you can just it's something to look forward to. Really, is if
Mhm.
you're talking with somebody back and forth through snail mail, and that was the best part. Is if you're feeling really depressed, you have something to look forward to. You have that letter coming back, waiting for their response, and you want to see what they have to say.
Mhm.
It was a really really nice way of communication, and it meant more in some ways, I think, because people took the time to write.
And there's ways to I mean, hell, you can even write yourself. Um Not with snail mail as much, but like I think that there's a way on email that you can send an email and like give a specific like time period for it to be sent or something like that.
I think you're right.
I think that's possible. I say this because the person who ran IOP, she had us write letters to ourselves, forgiving ourselves, and I was having an absolutely horrible day, and I got and she sent it about a month after I was out. She said she was just gonna send it at a random time, and it's crazy the way things work out because like it was such a bad day. Like I was so like there was almost no pulling me out of this, and then all of a sudden I get this letter, and it's from myself, and that's pretty powerful.
hmm
Reading it and being like, wow.
One of the other ways I used to use how to cope when I was angry at me, I'd yell at myself in the mirror if I was angry at myself for doing something.
Hmm?
And I'd talk to myself in the mirror, and it sounds really stupid, but for me, it worked. I'm not saying it'll work for everybody, but in my instance, it does.
Hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. If you are mad at yourself for saying something stupid or doing something stupid, or you can't seem to forgive yourself, do it in a mirror. You are your own worst enemy.
Hmm.
And sometimes being able to confront yourself visually that way really does help. You know, um, some people are more visual, some people can do it by writing.
Hmm.
It's basically the same concept applied different ways. And it's all a matter of what speaks to you more.
Hmm.
How do you best get over something that's upsetting or angry or scary? How do you best get past that hump? A lot of people, they're angry until they blow up. And sometimes it just takes the initial blow up in, at least in a harmless setting to get it out. My sister was big on that. She'd have her initial explosion where she'd like scream and slam a door, and that was it. She's done. As opposed to letting it build. Don't break things. We are not saying to break things.
Adding on to the list, because I'm sitting here thinking like, what else? Um, Social groups count as a social support. So that could include, like if you're in school, that can include things like choir, chess club, yeah, scouts, theater, sports.
A lot of the social clubs in your schools are good avenues
Hmm.
to at least talk to people.
Hmm. And you have the other people to talk to. You have the leaders to talk to. Um, and that's true of like anything in school or church. You have a choice of the direction you go in for that. Um, we don't realize most of the time, like when we're thinking about people to support us and help us with things, support can be big things, but it can also be little things. Um, and there's so many different ways to have someone support you, which, could involve telling someone what's going on or just being like, I'm having a really bad day. Tell me some jokes.
Yeah.
Or talk to me, let's talk about a funny topic. Let's talk about something stupid or silly or
Or in some instance, hey, do you think maybe we could meet up for coffee?
mhm.
Just get me out of the house, something.
Yep.
And sometimes it's all it takes.
Mhm.
The things that you can do to help somebody, there are so many, and a lot of them are just really simple things. Nothing big and elaborate, nothing that's going to involve more than like, a couple of hours of your time.
Mhm. I mean, it's not like, you have to financially support them or, fix the whole thing because that's not how it works. Social support is something that can be done a little by each person and you could band together
Yeah,
to
something to
help
say, we're
someone.
there for you while you go through this. We're there for you.
Hmm.
We,
Even just saying, I don't know what to say to make it better, but I'm listening
hmm,
and I'm watching and I care.
yeah, I would say think about your social support system as your personal cheering section.
Hmm?
Especially when you're going through things like, intensive therapy, things like that, they're cheering for you.
Especially during that.
Yeah, they're cheering for you and going, you can do it. You can make it through this. And even in the darkest hours, they're there going, you can do it.
And
We believe in you.
like, and I'm sure some of you are probably sitting there going like, oh well, yeah, you're telling me all these different social, networks and whatnot, but what do they care if I disappear? And the reality is that they actually would notice. Um, when I was extremely suicidal last month, I had told my IOP group, and the response was actually kind of amazing. Like, I didn't realize until that moment just how much of an impact I had on them. Like, I knew the impact that they had had on me, but I didn't realize how much my presence mattered until that night, like when I had actually said something and everyone was like, you know, I've only known you a couple of months, but I'd be completely devastated
Yeah,
by that. And we impact people and touch people in ways that we don't realize, and a lot more than we realize.
especially now in the days of social media.
Hmm.
I can't remember where I saw this, but there was something that said that you are no more than 6 people away from anywhere else on the planet, from anybody else on the planet.
Hmm.
You can find anybody through anyone that you know. And it's like ripples in a water. You know, you hurt yourself, you try to commit suicide. There is a ripple effect, and it does branch out far farther than you think it will.
Hmm.
And the same goes for social support. You know, the one person that you help, it does help branch out. It works both ways.
Yep.
You know, everything just it's like a butterfly effect.
It really is too. Like, thinking about like how many of the suicides happen and whatnot, and thinking about certain ones that have actually come to me, and I've kind of been like, wow, like that's just a couple of people away from being part of my social network.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
Hmm. You know, just the thing to remember most when you're feeling alone and scared and like there's nobody else in the world. Look on whatever social media you're on, look on your phone. There are at least 5 people on either of those sources that are willing to talk and who are willing to listen.
Hmm.
And at least try and give them a shot. You know, we can't tell you what to do, but hopefully the resources that we try to give you here will help you in times of crisis.
Hmm.
You know, be that calling the hotlines, going onto those support groups, talking to somebody that you care about or that, you trust. You know, it's okay, but talk about it. There is no need to feel embarrassed that you have these thoughts and feelings. I've had a couple of friends that have, self-harmed or tried to kill themselves because and they didn't talk to anybody because they were embarrassed.
You
And
shouldn't be,
you shouldn't
because
be.
there's nothing to be embarrassed of. Um, our
Nobody's going to think less of you because you
and
have
if
these.
they do, they're stupid. I mean, come on, like
Then they're not worth your time.
they're not realistic and they're not worth your time, and I know that seems so cliche, but it really is true. Like,
You know, clearly they're living in a world that the rest of us don't live in. You know,
we don't have control over our feelings. For the most part, we don't really have great control over our thoughts, but we do have control over what we do with them. And when it comes to talking to someone about this, think about it like, one, think about your friends, like if you would sit there and try to shame them if they came to you with the kind of thoughts that you're feeling right now. Like, would you turn them away because that's weird or that's horrible? And why should we be embarrassed of our feelings, which is something we can't control?
You know, for some of you who are really into having a decent laugh, or can have a pretty decent sense of humor about mental illness as a whole, there is actually a comedian that is out there who does a fantastic job with addressing mental illness.
Yeah.
Um,
Christopher Titus. I I may not have posted it yet on the Facebook page. If I'll check after we're done with this, and if I haven't, I will post the one that I've watched, which was really good. I mean, he did.
Norman Rockwell is bleeding. You can find it, the whole thing, on YouTube.
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. He really takes like all of the shit that he's gone through, and he turns it around. I mean, like, suicide's not funny. And in fact, when he gets to the suicide part, he's not laughing about it.
No,
Like, he does not find that part funny in the least. But he does kind of put a humorous spin on some of the other sides of it, and it's he's not downplaying it in any way. He's actually making people more aware of it
yeah, he's
by making
speaking
these
out.
jokes.
He's
Yeah.
bringing up very serious subjects in ways that people will start to listen and understand. He brought up a really interesting statistic. 63% of American families are considered dysfunctional.
I
We are
feel
now
like
the
that should be
majority.
I feel like that should be so much higher.
Yeah, it is the people with the white picket fences that
The
are
normal
weird now.
families are the weirdos, the outcast, the minority, and it's weird to think of it that way, but it's true. Most of our families are dysfunctional in some way, and we're not alone, and we're not different. We're not
The way that he looks at it, he says it's the people who have been through the shit that know when to sidestep when it starts hitting the fan. It's
yep.
the people who don't know how to do it that just sit there when it's about to hit. We all just sidestep it. And I think that's his way of saying there's no need to be ashamed of it. You learn from your experiences, and if you didn't have those experiences, you wouldn't have learned how to get to where you are now.
hmm
Those experiences actually do help you in the long run. And I love the fact that he addresses it full on and doesn't try to internalize any of it. He just talks about it. And the man had his mother and his sister both committed suicide. He speaks about his mother in Norman Rockwell is Bleeding.
hmm
And I
And he
mean,
doesn't sugarcoat it for you. When he hits you with that information, it hits you, and there's this. It's hard to explain if you haven't seen it. Just the way he does it, and then how he switches into the serious side, and it's like, this isn't funny. This
yeah,
is reality. And more people like him need to use what they do, their jobs, their talents, their ways of expression to talk about mental illness, to break these stigmas.
yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, look at what he's done. Look at what Christopher Titus has decided to do. He has taken social support to a whole new level. Like, he has decided, hey, my audience is one of my social supports, and
and
I
that's
am gonna talk
awesome.
about it. and that really kind of shows you thinking outside the box, and the fact that sometimes some of those social supports we don't realize are there because we wouldn't have thought of them that way.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it's a fantastic outlet.
Hmm.
It really is. That is one of the healthiest coping mechanisms I have ever heard of.
Yep. And
And
there's
it's an unusual one.
yes, it is.
It's not even something I would have originally thought of until I watched him perform.
Hmm. But look at what,
And
and he's not the only one that's turned his audience into a support
personal
network,
forum, yeah.
a personal forum for it, and a support network. Every single singer or songwriter that writes about depression, about alcoholism, about suicide, about abuse, about I mean, look at half the country stars. I mean, and I don't even like country that much, but they really get nitty gritty down into it. Christina Aguilera is one that gets down into some of the nitty gritty too. Um,
Several bands talk about addiction
mhm.
um, in their songs. And I don't know if any of you know this, Master
Some
of
of them,
Puppets actually is about cocaine.
yeah, some of them talk about suicide, and
Hmm?
like Good Charlotte had a song specifically about suicide called "Hold On." Um, right or one of it was a really popular song.
Wasn't it Nickelback 6 Feet?
Oh well, them I'm not surprised about. Rise Against, that's what I was gonna say, and then I was like, wait, that's not right. Rise Against has one called "Make It Stop," also titled "September's Children," that is specifically about suicide in the gay community, and they did a very specific video on it. Um, and there's more than that.
Uh, there was a Disturbed song called Inside the Fire that they specifically, at the beginning and the end of the music video, give you information on suicide prevention. Um, it was, I guess, based on somebody that they knew very near and dear to them who committed suicide.
Mm,
Um, and that was a really powerful it was a really powerful message that he put out there, and I appreciate the fact that he took the time for his music video to give you the suicide prevention hotline numbers and talk about it.
mm-hmm.
That takes a lot of guts.
um, Savage Garden, if you guys remember that band.
Ah, yes, Savage
The
Garden.
Truly Madly Deeply, and I think one of their biggest one was I Knew I Loved You Before I Met You. Is that what it is?
I think so.
Something like that. Anyway, they have a song called Two Beds and a Coffee Machine.
Oh, I love that song.
It's beautiful. It's specifically about domestic violence
Yeah.
and the constant going back to it. The in the song it talks about the fight that happened, the all of cleaning up afterwards, taking the children to the hotel, and then being like, but you have to go back to life. And she keeps going back to him, and in reality what he was talking about is, or at least how I perceived it, based on the end, is that he was a child in that situation who had no choice in it, but he had to keep going back to it because of his mother's choices and whatnot, and that but he survived it, and he sometimes doesn't know how he survived it.
Yeah. Skillet's Last Night addresses self-harm, and
Crap.
it also addresses, it's basically a guy talking to his girlfriend who has been self-harming, and her parents just kind of see it as a phase, and him telling her that he's there for her, even if they aren't. And I personally adore that song. I thought it was really well done. because, some people who self-harm don't commit suicide, but it's still a subject nonetheless because
Hmm.
self-harm it just makes it very, very easy. If you can self-harm, the barriers of what you won't do begin to go down.
Yep. And but I mean, and there's so many more. Smile Empty Soul did one called With This Knife.
Ah, yeah.
Everclear's wonderful. Talks a lot about yeah, kind of faces the suicide or the child, being a child with depression. Adam Lambert has a song, "What Do You Want From Me?" that I think really addresses like fear and not knowing what to do. And I mean, and there's so many others. Like if I kept looking through my iTunes, which is what I'm doing at the moment,
There's
I
Kelly Clarkson's Sober, which
yeah,
talks about addiction.
a lot of Kelly Clarkson's work deals with the stuff that she's gone through, and and then writers as well. They a lot of them turn their audience into a support network. Um, Videographers, um, people who do the what are those called when you
Documentaries.
yes, documentaries, thank you. Um, all of these people are using the public in a
Mhm.
way as a social network, as social support without really having to hear what the other side has to say. Um, I mean, I'm sure they do. I'm sure they read up on I'm sure they read the letters from fans. I'm sure they read people saying that it was helpful. Um, but in the end, I think that it's more about getting it out there and getting it heard. And
Yeah,
the whole reason we're talking about this is because, your family and your friends are not the be all end all of social support
there's so many options.
for
So
any
many.
any kind of mental health issue. There are so many different sides to social networks and social supports that we don't realize. Um,
I mean, sometimes it pops up at the weirdest moments.
mm.
You know,
I'm the kind of person that kind of is trying to learn to go with my gut, and in the times that I've talked to some of the social networks that I wasn't expecting to be as helpful, actually have ended up being more helpful than I could have imagined them to be. Like if your gut's telling you that you really need to say something, do it. Like don't if you hold back, that could be the time that you needed to the most, and you may not just end up helping yourself by saying something or by talking to someone. You know, as Ellie said, it's a ripple effect. It's like a butterfly effect. You know, the just the simple flutter of a butterfly's wings can completely change time and history. Um, that's what this is. Um, you never know what you say, how it might touch someone else later.
sometimes it's just something as simple as a thank you.
Yep.
What you said was really insightful. Thank you. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Yep.
It's so easy to be there for people. You just gotta ask. Sometimes you just gotta ask the right questions, and for the people who need you to listen, sometimes you gotta tell them what it is you need. You know, both parties just have to communicate.
Mhm.
Don't ever, ever, ever be ashamed to say that you need help. There is nothing wrong with needing help. Nothing.
Mhm.
And anybody who judges you, isn't worth knowing. Really, they're not. Everybody needs help sometimes, and it's important that you reach out when you need help.
I think that's part of why we've evolved as social creatures. You know, um, look at like just the groups of like cavemen at the beginning. On their own, like could they have hunted? Could they have survived? Could they have strived? Could they have learned how, could they have figured out fire? Could they have learned how to use tools? Um, I know you're probably sitting there thinking of some of my things. Yeah, they could have. Well, not one person doing it all. It
Yeah,
doesn't work that way. We have evolved as social creatures, I think, for a reason, and that's because we do need help and we do need people. We do need other people. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Um, there is a lot wrong with people giving others grief for asking for help. They are the ones that are wrong, not you. It's them. It's their issue. It's their problem. They are the ones at fault, and shame on them.
yeah. You know, again, we'll give you that number for the suicide prevention hotline.
Yep,
That's pretty important.
yep. And, start thinking outside the box with social support. Um, so the number for the suicide prevention lifeline, and this is national for the U.S. I can look up some of the ones for some of the other countries. Is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. You can also go on to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Um, and I just wanted to do one last reminder that about the Bell stuff. Um, Lisa's blog is theviewfromhere1.blogspot.ca, and they're doing every single time that somebody talks about, and I think it's mostly Twitter, but I could be wrong. Really, really, she has a video posted along with an explanation as to what they're planning on doing. But February 12th, if you can participate in the Bell Let's Talk campaign. And the address for that is letstalk.bell, BELL, .ca. And they will be donating 5 cents for every single time that it's talked about um, towards mental health, which is very, very important. Yes. Here's
On Twitter.
Yes, it is on Twitter. It is on February 12th, which is Tuesday. What you do is and this is for Canada, but I think everyone should do it, no matter what country you're in. Um, you can tweet hashtag Bell Let's Talk, and Facebook shares as well the Bell Let's Talk image. They're also talking about text messages and long distance calls. But this is really, it's about trying to get people talking about it. It's not even necessarily about the 5 cents, but although that 5 cents is amazing because, the more money towards mental health care is great, but really it's about ending the stigma.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here to do too. That's the whole point of Inkblot, is to get a conversation going. if you go to we have our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/weekly inkblot. I've been post I we post stuff about not just things like this, but we also post studies and articles, and I will go and check right now um about posting the about Christopher Titus's stuff. And just remember, you are not alone. There are
You are
people
never alone.
there are people in your support system that you don't even realize are there. So the next time you are out and about and you're doing something or you're feeling depressed, look around at the people around you. And
You'll find somebody, I promise.
yep. Um Next week, I don't think we've decided what we're doing. Next week I will actually be in New Jersey, so I might not be here. I'm not sure yet. I'm planning on driving out early in the day, so I might be here for it, but I guess it kind of depends on what's going on in my brother's side, because I don't get to see him that often. So
But if
but
you will have me, at least, if not me and
yes,
Ash. So you'll have at least me to talk about whatever I decide to talk about next Friday.
I we will figure it out, and I will post it as soon as I figure it out. Um, but thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Stay safe.